lot of complaints out of the analyst desk, Rebel. Lot of complaints here. And we've got GAM taking on Cerberus. It's a finals matchup. I'm sick of these complaints. We're here for bangers, and these teams are about to deliver.
Yeah, I'm not here to complain about anything when it comes to these two, because the amount of just rivalry that's been culminating over the last couple of seasons, ever since Cerberus kind of failed on their one push to try to win the split, has been huge, and it all came to fruition at the end of last split, and now we get to see the ramifications of all of it together, and I'm really excited for that prospect.
And look, I'm not going to lie. It's a big blow that Ego is Egon. But I believe in Fook. I think he can step up, take it to Levi. He's on Poppy. It's an enabling pick. He doesn't have to pop off and carry. He's just got to help the team.
Yeah, anyone forward thinking enough inside of the VCS to pick something like the Poppy out of absolutely nowhere when you haven't played before already gets a nice little check mark in my book, right? Like, this is a champion that I feel like is never a VCS champion. No one would have ever imagined that you would take something like this. This is like the typical LCK.
Rika, mate, I remember you. I remember you, Rika. It's all right, mate. Oh, that's a blast from the past. But anyway, we're into the game. As I've been saying, it is a matchup that we have a lot of history behind, as a hook will land onto B. The first trade does go over to Cerberus. Of course, Style does not want to fight at level 1. Zeri doesn't have an ability, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Also, Rebel, I need you to explain something. Oh boy, look at Yado's rune.
Yado, you are a Chad.
What?
This is Chad Yado. This is, you want to know what this is? Like, usually you would take like Airy or something for some additional trade pressure, and this is Yado just going, you know what? I'm gonna perma health stack your ass, and that's what's gonna happen.
He tries to step away. He does manage to get away from that shield. He hasn't burnt the flash. Yado, the absolute Chadmeister, will get the Levi flash as well as Fook comes in to back him up.
No way this is happening right now. Fook 1 just slams the door on Levi and Kadi in the mid lane to try to punish Yado, who doesn't even have to burn a summoner spell. He's got the grass root. He's supposed to auto attack. He just walks. Yeah, like, it's insane.
He sidestepped the spear and went, can't hit the spear. You can't kill me, mate. I'm out of here.
Later, Chomp just walks away from that situation in pretty convincing fashion.
Done. Yeah, Zeri had a look into the jungle as well. Just spotted Fook finishing up his clear. Isn't going to try and make a play out of there.
Yeah, it's good control of the bottom side of the map with Style, with B, where they're able to push out against Artemis. The lack of range, the lack of real wave clear to start things off is a little rough. What is happening with Kadi right now? He is in the face of Yado. Yado's full health, man. Relax.
Yado steps up, gives him the how you going, and Kadi, back to base, mate. Off your trot.
You're handing him grass stacks for free. This Victor's going to have like 4k health by the time he's on 4 items. This is not going to be a fun
the only thing getting grasped right now is Yado's hand around Kadi's throat. He's got a tight grip because he's dominating this lane.
It really is so far. At least the CS is relatively even. And Kadi, of course, you could still opt for like the tank Akali build, which changes things up a little bit. Especially into something like this, where like it's going to be a really health stacking Victor. The early trading just isn't there because it doesn't do as much damage or consistent enough damage as like something like Airy. And so Kadi, I think, could take more consistent trades against Yado with this rune that's been selected. It's just so that the all-in is never really going to succumb, so that Yado can just stand here and do as he pleases.
Artemis in a little bit of trouble, has to find a way out. We'll just pop the W and no one else can get in range. He just walks away. Ron P did burn his flash to keep himself safe. So Levi will manage to get a summoner spell at the very least.
Control so far from the side of Cerberus, pretty much across the map, because Levi's now tried 2 different ganks and has been thwarted on both of those attempts. We haven't really seen Fook 1 step into a lane quite yet, but again, the Nidalee is really the one that's expected to get out and about as much as possible in the earlier stages. The champion's not designed to really go into the hyper late game for the most part. So I guess in this earlier stage, just shutting out Levi is a pretty big boon to the side of Cerberus, especially when they've got, Yada to be able to count on in the later game. I know it's a little interesting because they have a lot of forward fighting potential with like you throw a Poppy forward, you throw a Gragas forward, you throw Samira forward, and there's a lot to be said. What a cover from Fook 1 too, because again, if Levi decided to just bounce directly into mid lane, immediately the door would be slammed on another gank.
Pun having to flash away. Kiaya was on top of him with a pretty full rage bar. And Pun with very little mana couldn't really tangle with that one, so a summoner spell burned up here on the top side.
Probably just going to TP back here. Because it's unlikely the Renekton's going to be able to clear the wave super effectively, so ultimately it's not going to mean too much. Pun is down CS, but this is like the tank Gragas build. This is...
Oh.
Does he want it? Nope.
Nah, he sees Fook there, knows that he can't go forward, would just get denied by that steadfast presence. But again, it's another, like, it's not an explosive bit of impact from Fook, but he's just in the right place at the right time. I think if Fook's not there, Yado probably dies.
Yeah, a good number of times they've been able to cover for this mid lane.
Oh, in they go! He gets smacked into a wall, though, and has to just dash away. That's the Akali ult burned, getting nothing.
It's an attempt, I think, from Fook1 to try to get Yado out of lane, because right now he's a level down and doesn't have a teleport to really get back to lane super quickly, and they really want a back timer for it. So Fook was trying to sit there, and Levi attempts to come in, and Kadi's like, okay, we could go on a full engagement, but unfortunately, like you said, put him into a wall, had the steadfast presence up. There's no ultimate that can really tag Yado, especially with all the health that he still had, about a third of his bar. Wasn't going to find that execute without trading the kill back over. So it's just time and time again, GAM has been thwarted on these mid lane plays.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they do see that Yado is where to attack. It makes sense, don't get me wrong. You can't really do much about a Gragas up on the top side. It's a Gragas, he just chills out for a long, long time. But I'm surprised they haven't had a crack at bot lane at all. I feel like you can't just let Artemis do whatever Artemis wants. I need to see Levi get down there.
Maybe the thought process here is that, like, with a Renekton and with an Akali, which are both capable of taking a fight from, like, very low range alongside the Samira, really the intention to bottom side ganking would actually be more so to get the Zeri ahead, which I think is a very valuable thing. So I think eventually Levi should shift into bottom lane, not even necessarily to shut down Artemis. It's kind of a dual purpose, though, because he shut down Artemis while simultaneously getting style ahead is eventually going to work. And Yado is just a brick house right now. Like, there's no way to bring him down.
Yeah, it's very true. As Ron OP whips out the hook, doesn't quite land it though. Takes a little bit of punishment on the backside. We do see Gamma in full control of this bot wave as the Zeri wave clear is beginning to come in. Nothing too serious though. The CS is still fairly even. Once Artemis catches that wave under his tower, I think it will be about dead even. So, we are pretty even Stevens. A couple hundred gold between these teams, mostly due to this top lane. That's pretty expected. Rebel, who does this favor?
I'm going to hold that question for the next minute because I need to see who is going to flip on this Rift Herald because it has a tendency to pop up in pretty much every single game inside of the VCS.
Kadi?
He's denied again.
They're not going to move forward. They're not going to move forward. There was the perfect execution used. And Yado saves his ult. So, Akali ult with a fairly long cooldown. I don't think he's going to have it up for the Herald play.
Most likely not.
He definitely won't.
Not going to come through. Ron OP, he kind of poked into mid lane alongside B. Both of them are up here with the intention of going towards the Rift Hero. The problem here for Cerberus is that their top laner, Pun right now, doesn't have the wave clear and isn't able to fight against Kiaya. So the push is actually in favor of Kiaya to be able to get into the river first here. You can see Pun is catching the wave and he has no mana to work with, which makes this all the more difficult for Cerberus to try to fight for. Now, Artemis is here first, although...
Styles not moving.
Yeah, Styles not moving. Tragic.
It's the Shelly bargain. Look, let's see how much he can get done on this bottom lane tower. This is something Yulwei talks about a lot. The bargain is being opted into by GAM. He's got to get a few tower plates because, of course, Cerberus do manage to... He's gotten 2. Yeah, this is fine, honestly. It does show that GAM wants to play around style. Traditionally, that's not a very GAM thing. They typically do play through other members, but Style is a good player. They've never made that decision because Style is bad. That's just the decision they made.
I actually really like this from GAM in a number of different ways. First off, the push from Kiaya denied any sort of like Rift Herald immediate top play that could respond to those plates to start with. And then you couple this with like, if they stick around too long, then B and Levi go after these two. Oh, Artemis canceled his back.
He canceled his B. That's a disaster. He doesn't have flash, uses the dash well, puts up the W as well, and a good flash there to get away from that Glacial Fissure, but he could have just finished the recall.
He probably could have. They were walking in. I'm guessing he was anticipating a spear to come out from the Nidalee maybe once he saw that Levi was coming out, but it just doesn't matter because he's Smurf anyway. Yeah, that was rough. That was a pretty rough ultimate from B because it kind of missed. Although Artemis flashing it obviously changed a little bit, so they do get the summoner spells out of Artemis. But yeah, there's a number of little situation right there that felt a little bit rough for Artemis because I feel like he didn't need to end up burning that. He could have finished the back and even could have maybe even just sidestepped the glacial fissure because it didn't seem like it was aimed directly at him. It seemed like it was aimed in the direction he was trying to flee, but. Who's to say? It is still just plates in the pocket of GAM in exchange for neutral objectives in the pockets of Cerberus here.
Yeah, Pikachu's leveling up here, Rebel. This is turning into a Raichu pretty quickly. And I'm getting a little bit worried on behalf of Cerberus because they may well be getting a bit of a shock as we head into the mid-game.
Yeah, it's really interesting just to think about how Style is just pulling everything right now, and he does have to go into the Trinity Force, which is pretty expensive, but he's going to get onto that breakpoint really quickly. And Artemis doesn't opt for something that can challenge from distant
Hook lance
range.
onto Kiaya. Dominus immediately burned. I hate to cut you off, Rebel. Ron P has to flash. He doesn't quite go down, but he is incredibly low.
Mm-hmm.
Does GAM want to continue the chase? They opt not to.
Goodness gracious. We're 11 minutes in with no kills. This is extremely uncharacteristic of VCS
2K
teams.
gold lead.
It is a 2K gold lead, which is even more shocking because usually when we have like 0-kill games, the game is really, really even. But 2K gold lead for GAM just off the back of tower plates being pulled off by Style. The Rick Herald still's been dropped by Fook1. I feel like a lot of that actually is in Style because he picked up 2 on the bottom and 3 on the top. So it's 5 full plates into the pocket of just Style alone. Has to account for a good amount of disadvantage.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's pretty much just that, and then the slight lead in the top side that is actually now being equalized by Pun. This is a Styles chance to really show off as Levi will manage to get away in that Cougar form. Yado with no catch. Very curious to see what this Victor can do. He is still scaling up. The CS is going well. Of course, we want to try and keep our eye on those glorious Revolution stacks. Nothing so far, just one ability evolved.
Yeah, I come to the conclusion of being able to contest Zeri as being first off, if they can get any CC onto him, obviously like it's really quick to just like dogpile with like Pun and Artemis to throw in. But the biggest one I'm keeping an eye on inside of those team fights is actually Fook1 to be able to deny Style a bunch of like the movement to the ability to just like shift around in a fight. So it's the rookie jungler coming out here from the side of Cerberus, or like the first time that the newbie jungler here that's coming in that really has to put a bunch of effort into making sure Style's not going to just dominate fights.
Yeah, and once again, the play is made towards mid, and Style got more tower plates. He's enormous. If you threw a toaster at him, he'd kill you.
This is... I'm not sure I understand that reference.
I'm going to be honest, I forgot that the part of dropping a toaster in a bath that kills you is the fact that there's water. In my head, I just went electricity plus electricity.
I was completely lost.
I've had a brain fade. Let's move on.
That's fine. I understand the reference, though, because obviously Style getting super powered like this, you've gotten under Trinity Force, you're going to be getting into second item territory, and the Zeri is going to be really hard to deal with, because the damage that you could put onto him, again, if there's no engage from Fook1 or Pun or Ron OP onto that champion, is pretty much just Yado, who, again, is going for super safety. You've got Crown right now, you've got Grasp as the rune, you've got, like, a back pocket, might be Merc Treads in the future that are going to be coming out for the likes of the Victor, and that means in the midst of a fight, like, Style isn't really going to have to worry all that much if there isn't this full engage. They have to figure out some way to find engagement into a very mobile champion. I think it's very tough to do so. I feel like we're keeping track of summoners is going to be big, not only the Gragas Flash but also the Poppy Flash, just to make sure we know when they're going to be able to generate some sort of forcing engagement onto that character.
Well, speaking of throwing heavy objects at things, Style has just picked up first brick. So he's getting even further ahead. And as we touched on the fact that it's 0-0 at 15 minutes, unheard of, for sure. But look at this gold lead, Rebel. I'm about to say something. It's a little bit controversial. Is this a macro game in the VCS?
Is this a macro game? I never would have thought I'd see the day, but apparently we've entered into a new era where our top teams are macro gamers here in the VCS. What it was at one point, it was like GAM was like the only team, and then you started to have like 2 teams compete for the top of the table, and then all of a sudden there's like 3-4 teams that are competing for playoffs, and now we're getting macro. Is this turning into an actual region? Carrix, I didn't sign up for this. I'm gonna have to go find a new region to go like.
I'm not going to be tolerating this. I'm not tolerating 15 minutes without.
I won't stand for this.
I signed up to be a play-by-play in the VCS. You've been talking far too much.
I'm not used to talking this much either.
Pun on the top side has completed that chem tank on the Gragas. Is getting tankier and tankier. His tier's actually fully stacked. Hasn't actually turned it into the Ceaseless Winter and the Fimble Winter quite yet, though. As more and more mythics are coming in. It's not going to be the Tankakali out of Cardi.
No, it is going to be full damage, which I think makes some sense because there's so few threats on the side of Cerberus. It's like if a Kali happens to be able to find basically Artemis on his lonesome or Yado on his lonesome and just gets a full combo off and either drives him out of a fight or outright kills him, like that's just problematic altogether. Engagement!
And here we go. The Pikachu ultimate has been used. Style is dealing so much damage. It'll be Fuquan, the first one to go down. Artemis does his best, but can't do enough. Gragas picks up one on the other side, but it just does not matter because GAM are cutting the heads off the dogs. Bang, bang, bang. Down they fall. The underworld is left unguarded. Yado has to run as the rest of his team melts away, and Cardi confirms the ace.
Pretty much across the board, we finally get a full engagement at 60 minutes into this one around the dragon. Cerberus are trying to give themselves some win condition by dragon stacking, but it's so late. I was worried that this was already going to be a problem, but GAM just gets a full-on play. This was started by Cerberus, too. I'm pretty sure it was Fuquan who flashed in on top of what was Levi to put him into the wall. But look where Style is. Style's in the back of the pit and just gets to throw Qs into the people in the front line. Artemis tries to put damage in, but it just doesn't matter. Style is positioned so perfectly in this fight that Cerberus can never challenge his positioning at all, and that just lets him clean everybody off the face of the map. Not to mention Kadi finally gets the one-on-one against Yado, so that means they can stop counter ganking with this annoying Poppy. Finally, Kadi gets some reprieve in terms of that one-on-one situation, and that breaks the game wide open for GAM.
Yeah, and I mean, this is this point of pain for Cerberus. Look, Fuquan, he's played a good game so far, but he just made that crucial mistake. I don't think that's a mistake Ego makes. Or if Ego does it, he's probably on a more aggressive jungler and kills someone.
Yeah. The biggest difference, I think, between what we saw from a lot of Ego in the last split and what today Fuquan has been doing is that Fuquan is facilitating a lot of what Levi has been able to accomplish, but hasn't really done anything himself. And so Cerberus is in this position where they have a composition that doesn't bode well when they're low range. They're really focused on engaging into single champions. Their range is pretty much limited to exclusively Victor, and everything else is just about getting that big AoE team fight in one specific area. But then they did nothing to set themselves onto a good foot where they have like enough gold for these champions to be able to do so. So now a gold deficit, this is really difficult to manage. It's just not a proactive style that like Ego typically would be playing into. So it's kind of rough. Hopefully like this game continues, obviously like the Victor's going to continue scaling, but I feel it's difficult one way or another for this game to go in Cerberus's favor. And now with like a 6,000 gold deficit, it almost feels like the game is nearly over.
Yeah, it feels like all that's left is the crying, really. As GAM, they pick up a second Herald as well. It just gets worse and worse for Cerberus. The Winter Champs not looking great in their first outing in spring. Maybe they just don't adjust well to the warm weather. As in they go once more, Ron OP. He actually started off well. This is actually a really good start to a fight for Cerberus, but they're just a little bit too far behind in money, and GAM are doing everything. Artemis, he does his absolute best. Yado will pick up a kill, and now GAM's on the run. There's a full health Yado running on forward. He's not going to be interested in a fight, though. He just wants that farm. Cerberus hold for now.
They do. They're able to hold underneath this mid-inner tower, and a lot of this is off the back that Yado, first off, just got a ridiculous amount of work done, and Artemis was able to get off a good ultimate. The problem here, Style went untouched pretty much again in a fight before the back half, and so that meant that Style got to throw in additional damage that just wasn't there, and that drew down Fuquan and Ron OP in this fight. That caused both of them to drop, and so your frontliners start to dwindle. So Yado and Artemis are here with this damage, and they're like, we want to fight, but they can't do it because they can't infringe upon GAM's territory without these frontliners.
Ooh, Levi jumps forward. The gravity field goes up. Ooh. Yado's actually got no mana. I think he needs to back off. He can't grade for these minions. And Rebel, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Yado's gone Grasp. Yado's gone Crown. Yado's going heal reduction. When does he get to do damage?
This, I believe, is a derivative of Chovy's horrid building path on Victor. The most illegal building paths I've ever seen have come from the LCK, but the VCS are not allowing ourselves to lose at absolutely anything before our run to championship at MSI, and that includes worst builds of all time. And in this case, it's super defensive, right? The intention is just to not ever die on Yato. But you're right, the damage is so kneecapped right now as it pertains to, like, you know, what is going to happen. The scaling comes at like 4 items, maybe even into full build territory, because the grasp is all about getting the health, the reduction of damage when somebody comes into you. Yes, it's very hard to kill Yato, but Yato trying to burn through anybody on this team is already going to be a difficulty, especially if a little bit of resistance comes through, just here or there. Like, that's all that's really necessary for GAM to just be able to destroy Cerberus.
Yeah, I really think I don't want to dwell on this for too much longer, but I just have a problem with the anti-heal. I don't think it's necessary that early in the build, but let's move on. Don't want to bog things down too much. Let's talk a bit more about GAM, because they played out a different look here. They empowered Style. He got, I think, 9 tower plates. I'd have to go back and count to be exact, but I think it was 9 on this Zeri. That includes first brick. He was so accelerated. He was basically in a rocket ship. Do you like this look out of GAM?
Yeah, I've actually been yeah, it is working. I've been a big fan of Style for a little while. He and DivKid both have like a lot of benefits to them at the bottom side of the map, and I feel like we don't see GAM play enough to their bottom side. So this is kind of nice, because this is like the Caitlyn look, where, like, you know, you leave Caitlyn in the laning phase and she just pulls tower plates, and then she goes and does it elsewhere and does it elsewhere, and all of a sudden she's out of mid game and she's a superpower. And Zeri is an even worse champion to have this happen on, because you're able to do so much. He's poking around into just like these tanks.
Oh, he's gone in. Ron OP on the runaway, does drop the depth charge. Artemis moving over, but the first kill will be picked up by Style. There's a TP into the backside. Oh no, I don't think that's where you want to be, Pun. He gets locked up immediately. He's a very tanky boy though, as he throws out that big cast. The gravity field is there, but Yato on the run. He manages to survive. The grass coming in clutch, apparently, as he whips another laser over the wall, but it just doesn't matter because GAM too big. Style is too damn stylish as he picks up another. It's a 3-for-1 in the favor of GAM. They have broken the necks of Cerberus.
Another humongous fight win from the side of GAM. This time off the back of just the diving from Kadi, who hasn't been able to just like completely pop off in a game like this, but definitely has more than enough damage on the Akali to be able to run through a backliner like that. It kind of draws everybody from Cerberus in, and it takes so long for the fight to eventually get broke, but there was never really a threat onto Style, onto Levi, onto any of the really important members from GAM, and that opens up now this Baron buff. And with this, they're going to break into what is probably 10,000 gold lead, or at least close to it, maybe 8.5, 9,000, somewhere in there at absolute minimum. They're going to be able to break down all the outer structures. They're already on 2 dragons. 3 minutes from now, the waves are going to be fine for them to take the third. Feels like this is just it's a road that is either really long to a win or really short to a win, depending on how accelerated they want to play. Because they've just been kind of smurfing all day today, pretty much every single rule. GAM is doing a great job.
Yeah, 100%. I do want them to do this quickly. I always think that's one of the biggest... I mean, not just from I want to get to game 2, but I do just think it's very important that teams are able to close things out. You don't want to... Particularly when we're looking at our top teams that could potentially be going international, you don't want to play long games when you don't have to. You want to end them quick, end them fast, and don't give the enemy team a chance. So I'm looking at that for GAM. Of course, this is an important split for GAM. I know, we're fairly close with Hanke, one of their coaches. He was pretty upset that they didn't win last split. It took a bit of a toll on him. Don't blame him. It sucks. They were so close as well. So I know they want to win this split, and I think they want to win it in dominant fashion.
Yeah, it's really funny because in the previous split, we talked about this right before we started, how Kiaya and Kadi were not definitively number 1 in their roles, and because of that, it sounded like they had an off split, right? Like we were like, oh wow, they weren't the best in the role in every single position. GAM is really having an off year, right? Like that's what happened in winter. And that was a rough place to be. Combine that with like Levi had great games, but also had quiet games. And over the last couple of splits, even back into 2020, feels like Levi hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype of just being the absolute god overlord jungler that like a lot of people saw him as for such a long time.
Artemis, he might have bitten off a little bit more than he can chew as Cardi goes gold to buy time. Levi hovers over, but everyone does manage to escape. So Cerberus at least still has a bit of fight in them.
This is. ready to see what they're capable of doing. Like you said, I think it's important to be able to close out a game like this. This is the other potential #1 team in the league, so I'm willing to give them a little bit of leeway if it takes a couple more minutes or another Baron take than normal. I'm all right with that, just because of at least the pedigree of what Cerberus brings to a game like this. But ultimately, GAM has been looking great in a number of different places. Every single person, I think Kiaya specifically, it's really tough to kind of be like, oh yeah, Style didn't have a great game. There is a flank, but Pun doesn't want to be there, I don't think.
Yeah, this is not a flank. This is a terrified fat man, but he does manage to get out of there. I think B he walks over to the bush to recall. What the hell?
It just caught him out of nowhere. He was like standing there, and I think when Kiaya and B were there, they're like, okay, if we shift Yado over, we could potentially kill these two, get good shutdown goal. And then Style pops in out of nowhere, and they're like, nope, we're done. Nope, we're not doing this anymore. We're out of this play.
Run, that's a 3-item Zari.
That's a Raichu. We're not playing with that. That's not a good thing. So unfortunately, that just closes things out. 3-item Zeri, like you said, also just absurdly strong at this point in the game, especially inside of a team fight. So challenging against this is going to be nigh impossible. Again, I'm just waiting for GAM to try to wrap up a game like this. I know it's a little bit difficult. Their Baron buff is gone. They have all the outer towers. The structure on the bottom side, I think, it took a good amount of damage for the inhibitor tower. So if another fight win comes through, they can potentially push through bottom and eventually win. Worst case, we just wait for the dragon.
Has been caught out, and Fuquan doing his best to try and escort him out, but there's no escorting him out of this one. As Kiaya comes in, slams the trap shut. Levi pays with his life, but I don't think he cares. It is only a small price to pay for the first victory as they bear down. They are cleaning up the rest of Cerberus. 3 of them still alive, but Style goes immediately over the wall, trying to land the last bits of damage with that peanut launcher. Can't quite do it, but it's enough to get them the inhibitor, and GAM's lead only grows. They are 13k ahead, Rebel. 13k!
26 minutes, 500 gold of advantage per minute. It's kind of insane given the fact that we didn't have a kill until 18 or 7 or 16 minutes into the game. So to think about the last 10 minutes really being the massive kind of explosion of gold that has come through from GAM, to me just speaks to their ability to be very decisive as well, which is something that's, I think, defined what teams have looked really good to us and what teams have not looked good to us in terms of all 8 teams that we now have a chance to see with at least a little bit of tape, is that the ones who have really impressed us so far have been the ones that have been able to make really fast decisions or really cohesive decisions. And GAM has been showing us that in spades over the last 10 minutes of this game.
Yeah, 100%. The shot calling looks... obviously, we can't hear it, but it looks like it's on point. But let's have a look at Artemis. They do everything they can to try and save him.
Yeah, props to B being able to get a small engagement to be able to get Levi and Cotty into that backline. This is where things got a little bit rough because Style was a little far back for this fight to actually continue, so it ended up being a trade. I know Ron OP went down. I was hoping Yato would be able to put in more damage, and again, this is the talk of like the grasp and the really defensive. Oh, we're right into a team fight.
Of course we are, and Artemis has already fallen. Oh, this is a penta angle all of a sudden. He's got the triple kill, he's got the quadra kill, and Rebel is moving on forward. They need Team Rocket to come get this Pikachu. Because Style's got penta. They're moving into the Nexus, and here he is. He's coming to play.
What could we have possibly thought about day number 1 for GAM and their game up against Cerberus? We were thinking, oh, this is going to be close. Oh, this is going to be competitive between our top 2 teams. Nope. Style comes